So Suzume is an anime film from the director of Your Name, and it's very much in that same vein of that type of film where it exists in the modern day. It involves young people trying to save the day and discovering magical elements right in their backyard. And despite how many films we've gotten like that are along that same range, especially from director Makoto Shinkai, I have to admit they still kind of work on me. They still they still make me feel something. They still make me interested to see where they go. Maybe it's just because they look lavish, like they make these astoundingly looking like settings and characters and have all these little details that just gross you in its world. Maybe it's because it has like little, I don't know, kind of like little like relatable slice of life elements woven in with its kind of like low and contemporary fantasy elements, but it still works on me. So the premise of this one is that Suzume Iwaro is a high school student who has a little bit of trauma from her past. She's lost her mother, and she feels like she's been somewhere else before within a dream. And then one day, she notices something odd at the ruins amid her her Japanese home. She ventures there and she finds a door just inexplicably there out of nowhere. And she finds that if she walks through it, she can go to a different place, but then finds out that dangerous stuff comes out of the door. This weird, like, worm-type creature of, like, black and red just comes out of the door and tries to attack her. And coming to her rescue is, what's his name? Like Soda, I think? I believe his name is, Soda, wasn't it? I just, you have to consult my notes here for a minute. But yeah, she finds like this mysterious stranger, called Soda. And Soda is basically, like that handsome, guy who knows all about the magical world and kind of fills her in on his job, which is basically to close doors in her world. There's another world beyond hers that has dangerous elements that leak out onto Earth and cause all manner of disaster and death and panic. And it's up to Soda to close these doors, and Suzume helps him at that point. And so she takes an interest in him and finds that she needs to actually help him more since another spirit in the form of a cat has kind of targeted Soda with a curse. And it's a curse, and stick with me here, it's a curse that transforms him into into Suzume's childhood chair. And he remains that way throughout most of the film. So the majority of the film is just Suzume wandering around Japan with her little chair buddy, shutting magical doors and keeping a giant, disastrous worm creature from entering into our world. And it sounds like a silly premise, and don't worry, like they do recognize the absurdity of it. But it also manages to be a touching one. And I think that's like a great feat for a film like this. If a film can make you care that much about a teenage girl falling in love with a chair, I think that's a good feat. And I think it sells it well just because like the chair obviously has a bigger attachment to, her history with her mother, and forming like a bridge back to her past and coming to terms with her trauma and trying to live more for the next day instead of like worrying about the past. And ultimately, ultimately, like, I think like Suzume comes to terms with, a bit of an existential crisis, that befalls her when trying to contemplate another world and losing someone to the void, especially when Sota feels like he might be the next spirit who goes off into the great beyond. And more or less what the film is all about is basically trying to find some will to live amid all the disaster and keep pushing back, keep trying to, protect people and be with people and give them a good life and shut as many doors of disaster when you can, if you can. Which happens to be pretty dangerous. Like one of the doors is on like a Ferris wheel, so it gets pretty intense at times. But there's also a lot of like great little cute asides in this film. Like you get to see Suzume hang out at a bar. You get to see her on a train. You get to when I say hang out at a bar, I mean she works at a bar. She befriends some children who find a lot of fun stuff that they can do with the little chair, especially since it's a chair clearly made for like kids who are like 3 to 4 years old. So of course the kids are gonna have some fun with it. So. And yeah, just all the fun characters that she meets. Like, she meets a cheapskate who knows Sota, who's basically, like, looking for some money, and he has a car that doesn't quite work. You have Suzume's aunt, who is desperately trying to seek her and trying to be more of a motherly figure, but is just struggling because, like, she hates that she's been placed with this burden of Suzume. So there's a lot of baggage that they have to unpack throughout the film, which they do just beautifully. Like, there's a... Like, I'll say this. If you like the scene in Everything Everywhere All at Once where the characters just almost kind of like scream at each other and get everything out in the open and then try to repair themselves with like all like the resentment that they've been feeling, you get a few great scenes like that in Suzume. And they're so like they're so emotionally moving, and just like they touch on something that you'd want to see like an anime film do like this. Like, 'cause that's one of like the interesting things about like having like anime like this, is that you can tap into stuff that you wouldn't get to as much like with like Western animation stuff, like Pixar and DreamWorks. It feels like you always have to couch it within something a little bit more fantastical to appeal to a younger audience. And here it's very much like exactly like with Your Name. It's made relatable by depicting a like a believable modern world, and then placing this fantasy on top of it while giving characters something to learn. And much like Your Name, this is a gorgeous film. Everything, the scenes of like her traveling on a ferry, and her hanging out at like the nightclub, and just the little like natural environments, and just like the rain, and like the beautiful cityscapes, and just the detail in the water, just all of it just looks gorgeous. Where like, and it's never like treated as like, okay, here's this shot where you got to appreciate the beauty, here's where a character has to stare in awe. It's just there, and I love how it's just kind of treated as like almost like casually with the filmmaking, where it just kind of catches you off guard. Where like the scene where Suzume and Sota are chasing after the cat that they've got to track down. Once they get onto the ferry, it's like, oh great, we gotta sit on the ferry, and then we gotta wait till we get to land and find out where this cat got to. And then it cuts to this wide shot of like the two ferries, and the sky reflecting off the waters, and the detail in the ship. It's just, it blows your mind each time you see it. It's gorgeous. And I guess like the way to judge this film is like you can't quite look at it like most anime films, like, because it feels like you got to compare it to like the other stuff, like Your Name, and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and what are some other, like A Silent Voice, and all these other kind of like coming of age teenage anime that have these very like fantastical but also kind of almost kind of very essentially low fantasy with very much relatable elements, and very very poignant personalities that come about in there. I feel like on that level, I would say that Suzume is not as good as Your Name, but only slightly. Like it's narrowly there. I guess like the thing is, like, I feel like the film proceeds almost like too quickly to get to like its next cool fantastical sequence and its next emotional resolve, that it feels a little bit patchy in the first act. Like I was kind of getting like, my worries was that it was kind of going to be like Howl's Moving Castle, where it's like it's a great setup, great world, great imagination, but doesn't really give you that much time to spend with the characters. But thankfully, by the second act, you get to learn a lot more about Suzume and Sota, and by that point, you're fully invested to see whether or not they can save Japan from like this big threat that's coming through all these doors. So you're invested very much in that adventure aspect, but also with the grander, existential problems of Suzume and coming to terms with herself. similar to like a lot of other anime in this genre. So if you like those types of films, especially Your Name, which I know a lot of people loved, what can I say? That this is another banger from Makoto. So go check it out.